Hello everyone. It started with a big bang, this dragon year. Exactly as I expected it to happen. Like before the new year, we had a big X-class solar flare just a few hours before. In Greenwich Zero Time there was midnight, starting 2024, the 8th year, the figure 8, which is the powerful, probably the most powerful of the 10 digits. The 9 is already the solution, and the 0 is all and everything or nothing. But the 8 is kind of the pinnacle. It is the integration of the polarity of the clockwise and the anti-clockwise motion all in one movement. That's why the 8 is so powerful. So that year was initiated with a X3.4 solar flare. That is a magnanimous flare. This is the largest category, which only come around solar maximum. The last of those we had in August 2017. That was just, actually it was early September, to correct myself, just 2 weeks after the big American solar eclipse, which you all might remember. That was the event of the century, definitely, as another one coming up interesting in 2024. Another exact path through the United States and Canada and Mexico. A solar eclipse, a total one. This happens really rare, in average maybe every 50 years or so in one location in such an intensity. So exactly like the new year was rolled in with an X-class flare, so was the Chinese New Year, the Aquarian new moon, with a X3.4 event. It was afterwards. This is, here it says it, and I put together a little show here for you. I think it's really worth the occasion. So that was how the sun looked on that 9th of February, the beginning of the new Mayan year, the dragon really coming in strong. This is how the sun looked, and everybody expected to have a big flare from here. It came actually from here, and it looped with that particular pattern we have around the sun on the magnetic field into the Earth's field directly, and a few hours later we had another flare from here. So let me just play you here a little sequence here of images. This was how this big sunspot looked close up. You can stop the video and read this if you like. It was all on spaceweather.com, which is my homepage, has been since probably 2 decades. I love watching the near-Earth cosmic news, in that sense, the weather report from out there, and not a forecast. Well, sometimes it is, but mostly just real-time data of what's going on out there. So this was the close-up of that Earth-facing sunspot, and had a very unusual polarity as is described here in this clip. So this was from probably the 7th or the 8th of February, just a couple days prior. So everybody said yes, there's a possibility of big flares, and I was pretty sure yes, that's what we would see. So this was it then at no that is then the second. Okay, now okay, this is the big spike. You see, this is X3.4, and this then the other second one, less than, well, a little more than 24 hours later, an M9.0, another really rare size. I mean, you see we have multiple big flares already in this whole few days surrounding the Chinese New Year beginning. things will get wild. I mean, there's pretty clear indications with these two flares at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the Chinese New Year, which is a really practical approach to prediction on planet Earth. The Chinese are great in giving practical application of the higher sciences, you could call it, feng shui, astrology, the I Ching. Chinese medicine fits in there too, so there's enormous wisdom which is coming from that country, because they probably are one of the oldest civilizations in that sense, without having gone through a serious calamity of everything being erased. So we have sources in India, and in India is similar, but in China about 100,000 years. Why do we know that? It is the drawing of the Big Dipper, the main constellation in the northern night sky, which is circumpolar, can be seen every season in the northern hemisphere. A drawing of the Big Dipper, naturally probably the one constellation everybody knows. So there's a drawing, and the stars had a different arrangement slightly. So scientists now know how fast stars are moving per whatever century or millennium, and they calculated that it would have been 100,000 years ago when the constellation of the Big Dipper looked exactly that way. So anyway, the long story short, here right at the eve of the beginning of the new cycle, Aquarius new moon, 20 degrees and 14 minutes in Aquarius, for those of you who are interested. If it's close to one of your personal planets, then you definitely will be one of the key players here this year, most certainly. So 1 hour after lunch, 0 time, and the beginning of the Chinese year was at 11 p.m. Universal Time. But wait, I'll show you something now. So this was the event, this was the X-ray pulse, which was sent in from Earth's perspective, so to say, on the western limb, where the sun would rotate backward back into the area where it cannot be observed behind from Earth's point of view. The sun rotates around itself in about 26 to 28 days. That is a very interesting thing to know as such. So every sunspot moves over the sun's disk from east to west over the course of about 14 days. 13 days. So 11 p.m. that was something like 10 hours later, the exact beginning of the Chinese New Year. However, this is the chart, we go back to that, and we go back to this one too. This was how the radiation jumped up immediately, because, as I said, actually, let me show you this. No, we don't go there, it gets too long. There's always more. So immediately the radiation jumped up, which caused a radiation storm, which is something which is the physical impact of highly charged electrons and protons interacting with the Earth's atmosphere. Let me see, here it is. Here you see it. This was the big spike here. That is from the Lockheed Martin Solar Observatory page. Also really good source for exact information, scientific. So here you see that is then when the radiation really started spiking up. That is matching this other graph which I just showed you, and the lower curves here, these are the super highly charged electrons, 100 electron volt, 50 electron volt. So these curves are mattering the most. These ones are a little less impactful. They are mostly not entering the inner sphere of Earth's atmosphere and not hitting really the ground even, some of these count. So however, you see the big spike here in the high energetically high energetic particles was around 11 p.m. You can see that it's really here at the very last bit of the 9th of February, pretty exactly timed with that moment of exact new moon, of when the sun and the moon were exactly in the same place when the new year began, which is okay. So here, okay, yeah, here we have that close up again. So you see this, the flare went off 1:14 p.m. and fried the whole upper atmosphere, what they call a radio blackout. That means all the communication in certain wavelengths are totally distorted and melted into the plasma of the upper atmosphere. It's an electromagnetic plasma, you could call it, which is created. So something really special each time one of these huge X-ray emissions is hitting Earth. Naturally, this is powering Earth up in a very simple way said, and naturally this causes stress to some degree, because it's like you just insert a whole lot of new force into a circuit, and it can cause the wires to start getting too hot, you could say, and then for whatever to not function anymore, burn up literally. And this is what actually happened in 1989 in Quebec. After a huge solar flare, generators were catching fire, and the whole of Quebec had no power for at least half a day or more. And this other huge event we are aware of happened in 1859. That was what's called the Carrington flare. That was before really all the special features we have today. It was recorded though by a few astronomers. One of them was Carrington. He did exact drawings, and he said that for 3 nights there were auroras. The skies were flaming. That was in England. Everywhere on the whole planet that was reported. If this would happen today, all the electronics would basically fail. All the satellites would be killed. Just imagine that power the sun can release. So this was just kind of a minor example of what's really possible, but it definitely is indicating things are heating up fast. Now, just a day later, in a few hours, we had that second event, which was an M9 flare. And that came then straight at us. However, the interesting thing that this second radiation storm was unrelated to that second flare, which was kind of just a big spike. Let me show you here once more in this graph here. That was this spike here then, which came right at us, directly front and center. So I'm going back to this chart once more. So this, you see here, you see it. This was the big spike, the 3.4 in X, and this was the M9.0, and you see this one caused the Earth's magnetic field a real wobble. That was the head-on collision, so to say. However, it didn't release a coronal mass ejection. Some flares are too short and too sharp to really trigger the solar plasma field to generate a wave, but bigger flares like this one, I mean, in time, more extended flaring is usually releasing lots of solar magma, really, that is probably not too wrong, solar plasma out into space, which then travels at a substantial speed, up to several thousand kilometers per second. These are protons, charged protons, which are carried out of the solar wind, which is really like the combustion from a really strong fire, and that goes in all directions, and particularly where flares appear naturally, it is magnified to an enormous degree. So the sun is really a conscious being. That this is, I guess, very clear. We have to look at it that way. That was all the ancient religions. They were honoring the sun god. That was the prime intelligence, logos, source of life, of everything. We are all extensions of solar energy. Naturally, nothing would be alive without the sun. So the sun is really where everything is emerging from, and in this sense it must be this also the center of intelligence. Makes total sense, and it responds to us, our frequency, because we are its conscious incarnate expressions, so to say, its extensions into consciousness. So humanity as a whole is definitely in the driver's seat in the end. It's our free will which tells the sun how to express itself, to be in tune, and that is exactly what's happening. This is the power of our energy, mainly heart energy. This is what really is driving the engines right now. That's what we have been getting better and better at, I guess. It's as we were going through this upgrade step by step through all these difficult manifestations we all have gone through collectively. This was another really big sign that we were indeed on this integration timeline of streamlining, bringing into coherence, into synchronicity, all the different timelines. This was for me the big actually I was very excited about it, to say. That was in March 2020 when everything went crazy. And actually I have a recording you can see where I show the astrology of that moment, and it was, to me, pretty clear this was a big psyop to start with. Anyway, what I want to say is that everything on the planet falling in sync with each other, all the countries on the same agenda, all people going through the same experiences, this was a beautiful introduction into this unified field. We are merging into oneness, everybody being aware of everything else, literally our perception, our ability to know what is, in a very direct sense, is growing, is expanding. It is really bringing us all together, and this is what powers the sun period. So anyway, this was the second spike, which didn't release any new particles, but then we had what's called a filament exploded, and this caused this second wave of strong radiation particles, highly charged electrons to hit Earth and to truly interact, bringing in direct solar coding, so to say. Each of these electrons carries the frequency of the sun of that moment. That's why astrology works. So let's escape here for a minute and see where we are here in this. Yeah, there's a few more. Okay, a few more shots. Let's go back to it from current slide. Okay, so this is now, okay, let's look at the astrology for a moment, because that's what we are really about on this channel usually. It's just the excitement was so big, I really had to show you a little bit of the scientific background here. So that was the moment when the flash hit Earth, that X-ray flash. You see the moon just shy behind the sun. 10 hours later it's new moon. It's literally beautiful. It happened in the same way before the new year on the 0 meridian. 2 or 3 hours prior was that X5.0 flare. This one was an X3.4, also hours before. So kind of I'm getting you charged up for the event, so to say. And literally the moment the new moon hit was when that first big wave of charged electrons interacted, causing a radiation storm. A strong one, S2. So anyway, this all links back to Pluto, and without further ado, let me jump into the chart series I have prepared for you today. So yes, naturally we start with the same one here. What I found super interesting is that 10th degree of Cancer is a diamond in the rough being cut. This is super matching with my observation, what really is happening to all of us. Our diamond of perception is being cut. A large diamond in the first stages of the cutting process. The arduous training for perfection in order to fully manifest an ideal. This is from Dane Rudyard's interpretation of the Sabian symbols. I will post the link. There's this whole book is online, so I give you the link underneath, as always, with all the different links to do more research and to find out what I'm really talking about. All to be found in the description of the video. Okay, that 10th degree of Cancer. We are still dealing with the evolution of consciousness and of personality at a preliminary stage. There's still ways to go. The potentiality of a completely formed mind through which the light of understanding will shine brightly is already in evidence. Good news. But much work is still to be done. And is described as a painful operation for the rough stone. But the goal is worth the suffering, the heat, the grinding, and the noise. Very, very fitting. And Gonggong here at the head of the chart. We have been talking of Gonggong quite a bit here lately. Gonggong, the small planet, the seventh of the seven dwarfs, as one astrologer kind of categorized those 7 largest bodies in the Kuiper belt. This was the 7th, discovered in July 2007, on July 17th, the 7th month, the 17th day in the 7 year I guess you see a pattern, and it was the 7th of the 7th dwarf, so there's something really special about that one. The number 7 links us to the higher dimensions in a very general way. It opens the door to infinity. That's what it is. It generates irrational numbers. Something to ponder. Anyway, it was actually the first celestial object ever whose name was publicly voted on. So this is kind of special. So the astronomers put out 3 names on the internet in 2007, 19 I guess they did that, and for a few months people had the chance to vote. And there were 3 options: Holle from the German mythology, and Vril from the Nordic, and Gonggong from the Chinese. And people chose Gonggong, that was the winner. Gonggong, the Chinese water dragon, who went through a real crisis, as he had to accept defeat against the fire dragon, and he was so mad that he rammed his head into the Buzu mountains, which caused the whole earth to tilt. Actually, one of its feet broke, as the story goes, one of its support, and the axis tilted, and rivers started running backwards. So this is a really, really powerful story, and I don't think we should always think of actual physical manifestation of that sort. They are possible, no doubt, but most and foremost, it is as Martin Artley actually was proposing that interpretation for Gonggong, that it's about banging one's head in the sense of, why couldn't I see that, or am I so stupid, kind of, all of that, and also which then opens the floodgates for a sudden and immediate understanding of a greater context. That's kind of where it is all going. So Saturn had very recently its 3rd conjunction with Gonggong, which here is still named as 2007 OR 10 would be the complete signature of that body. Anyway, it is has been discovered when it was in Pisces. Actually have here the discovery chart. I will get to that maybe later, but just quickly here, that is its discovery chart. It was at 0 degrees Pisces, opposing a void of course moon Venus opposition conjunction. Very, very interesting, this how this Gonggong energy is touching down on Earth. You could say it's really touching us emotionally, and Moon Venus has definitely a very strong frequency with love, so there is deep love in there. Yes, it is a void of course moon, which means it's unpredictable. It's a real wild card energy, this body. And the Gemini rising, this is enthusiasm, which rules that area of the zodiac, hexagram 16. Anyway, what really excited me is something totally different though, that on October 10, 2023, that was the last time Pluto started moving forward again. all the planets move through these cycles, forward, backward. Every big planet, the rough cycle is 7 months forward, 5 months backwards. This is naturally because of Earth's motion around the Sun. And yeah, anyway, I don't want to go there. Just thinking of flat Earth philosophy. How can you explain all of that observation, which makes perfect sense once you accept the model we use in astronomy of Earth traveling around the Sun and looking at the whole universe from a slightly different angle over the course of 6 months, as in summer Earth is on this side of the Sun, so to say, and in winter on the other. So we have really getting to have a stereo vision, and actually this is used by these powerful telescopes. That's what they do. That's how they measure distances of stars, because there's this slight angle if you look at something from two different points of view, like we have our two eyes. So Earth's two positions give us this stereo vision. So anyway, the long story short, if you know at least a little bit about astronomy and mathematics, then the whole flat Earth thing doesn't hold up at all. Just wanted to throw this in as it came to mind. So, okay, what really struck me, and you have to go back to this video, I did that back then around November when I became aware of this. This is huge. This is another big discovery for me. So first of all, Pluto is not a single planet. Pluto is a planetary system because its moon is half its own size. This is unusual. It's the only duo in that sense of more or less equal size. Yes, Pluto is still double the diameter of Chiron, its moon. But the special thing is their mutual gravitational center is between the two in empty space, so they're rotating around each other. In that sense, it's a true expression of duality at its strongest, which again makes me think of the figure 8. So there's a resonance there too. So Pluto has a special role to play this year. It seems Pluto is Shiva. That's the Shiva energy of the underworld, which is here to harvest. It's the guy with the scythe, which comes to bring souls home, called death. Yes, Pluto is definitely strongly related to that. The beautiful thing is, though, that it is a side we do not really see when we enter that black door, what is on the other side. And I mean, yes, indirectly we know more than ever all these reports from people who had been dead for an hour or even just minutes, coming back with all these memories, near-death experiences. Definitely one of the beautiful gifts of Pluto energy, becoming conscious. So we have learned more and more about that other side to lose that fear, because the fear is really not necessary. Pluto is a gift. We need that shift of dimensions to not get locked and literally unable to move out. It becomes a prison at some point. So this is really also has to do with the urge for freedom, which is interesting that this is the following sign after Scorpio, which is where Pluto rules. We get into Sag. So it is that adventure which is calling for greater dimensions, greater visions, greater realities. It's always an expansion. Yes, sometimes it appears to be diminishing to some degree, but it's just shifting into another gear. So anyway, the long story short, and you have to go back and listen to that video. I can't really give you the whole story here in just a few seconds, but the story is this, that from Earth's perspective, we with the telescopes we observe when a planet comes to standstill and starts moving backwards due to Earth's motion. And so these two are far enough away from each other, Pluto and Chiron, to be observed, and it, because Earth has a different angle to either of the two because of their little distance. We see them at different times coming to standstill and moving direction. So Pluto might be a little earlier and then before turning, and Chiron might still go that direction and then also turn. So you get the picture. So naturally, this is a question in astrology now. Which of the two shall we take as the station? Because the station is the 0 point for whatever is coming after, for the next 7 months in that context of Pluto's expression in the world. So shall we take the moment when the planet, the bigger of the two, is observed to stand still, or the smaller, or shall we take their combined mass, so to say, the gravitational center's moment of turning direction? Reasonable question. So I actually have a different approach, and this is seemingly matching what I already have been sensing, that Pluto and Chiron are in a relationship. Actually, they're locked into each other. That means if you would live on Chiron, you would see Pluto always in the same spot in the sky wherever you are, because you're turning in the same way, locked into each other. So you're really you cannot escape from one another. It is a confrontation constantly, and then against the other's background you see all the stars moving as you're kind of spiraling through space. So the other is also in that sense then the focal point, the orientation point. So it becomes your all and everything in a way. So Pluto and Chiron are pretty powerful for that alone. So I take them as equal. Regardless, Pluto being bigger, Chiron being smaller, yes. And for that I use the time-space midpoint between their two stations, which is about 10 hours, up to 10 hours in difference it can be. Thank you, Ron Scott and Marina Getova. I hope I said that right this time. They have provided me with the exact information on these moments in time, and I have the links to their site under that video, which I published it in November. I will put the link below so you can go to the whole story. It's really an exciting story, and what just happened with the solar flare actually proves that I'm on the right track, because you see, it's the same geometry. It's surprising. It struck me when I realized that. And Pluto is super special these days, because Pluto, as you know, entered Aquarius on January 20th or something, and now is trailed by Mars and Venus catching up to Pluto. Actually, Mars already has caught up, and Venus will within a day or two. So there's this big conjunction here already in play between Venus, Mars and Pluto, which is literally a new creation. This is a powerful combination of energies, similar to that which we saw when the green comet was closest to the Sun. That was in January 2023. You can go back to that recording too. Actually, no, I'm saying it wrong. It was the discovery chart of that comet, which had that configuration, Venus, Mars, and Pluto. But then they all still were in Capricorn. Now Pluto have moved forward. This is probably the biggest shift of our times, Pluto moving into Aquarius. And this really opened the door into the next 24 years or so. Might be a little wrong on the number of years there, but for the next 2 decades for sure. Pluto in Aquarius, rewriting the story, changing the parameters of the game. This is what we are seeing, and it will get pretty radical, I tell you. I've been looking forward a little bit, and also from what I have heard Jacqueline Hobbs, Oraclegirl, say lately, is yes, we are at the point where nature, where the time is up. Let's put it that way. Where nature will do what nature does, sometimes unexpectedly, out of nowhere. Yes, there is a deeper reason, because we are manifesting this. We collectively are asking for this. We are ready. And again, I want to emphasize, please be aware, this might really be the time in the next few months to have a little bit of backup of the essentials you need for life. I'm meaning it seriously. The North Node was the initial signal, I would say, that something big is up, which moved into hexagram 51 thunder, that is thunder below and thunder above in the Chinese I Ching. Hexagram 51, shock and thunder. That is this time between let me see if I wrote it down here. Between January the 8th and May the 11th. This is that window, and this is a very, very powerful set of degrees. Thunder and shock, and you see that's where the North Node and Chiron are both at, actually exact on the 19th, so really an intense call for transformation also in that sense. Chiron in that sense really making us see what is going on here. Pulling down the curtains. Nothing stays hidden anymore. Everything we have to face, and this is literally true on all levels, and this in itself generates an emotional and mental and physical component too of intensity, which is demanding for nature to reflect that. So that's really the bigger picture. Beautiful, that first segment of Pisces here at Midheaven. And I had this, I wanted to say that the biggest important axis, you keep seeing me focusing mostly on these two axes, the midday point, which is the power which is coming through into this existence. That's where it's coming in, and this is where it's expressing through. This is the surface of the earth, so to say, where we bring this power from the above and the below into action, into manifestation. Pholus Quaoar, yes, a beautiful pair which is together for many, many decades till 2060. It's unbelievable that for that long they are moving in perfect sync. So Pholus is the one which is saying, okay, now is the time, let's just do it, let's get going with this show. And Quaoar is the one which sings reality into a new manifestation. That is the beautiful myth there. Quaoar is an American native deity of singing reality into creation, yes, and it has also that element of rhythm, of music, of drumming, of celebration, and it often is expressing itself as challenge at first, challenge to break through a glass ceiling, or literally to go through a difficult phase to then have the get the big door prize too. So it is it was actually interesting the first time these two were having an exact conjunction in this whatever 50 years, which there will be many of them, actually probably every year or two conjunctions they have. They move in a little bit out of sync, forward and backward. The first one was in February 2022, and was pretty much down to the day when the conflict in the Ukraine began, when Russia finally lost its nerve and had to act, as we now exactly know, since just as of late, because it's now pretty mainstream what was truly happening there. So anyway, just giving you a little bit of an idea of how this can manifest, because this is the energy which has come in and wants to be coming into form. When energy is coming in such a enormous amount, this is an imprint which will in time bring its manifestation, you could say. So anyway, you see that, let's just keep going, otherwise it gets too long. I could go for hours, yeah, no. So this is the heliocentric chart of that same moment when the flare was going, and what I do like here particularly is this Mercury-Mars conjunction. Mercury is approaching Mars. Now Mercury and Mars have a special role these days. You might remember on October 14, at the last solar eclipse, total solar eclipse, it was hours prior was a Mercury occultation, and hours after a Mars occultation. This was really unusual, which meant for part of the Earth's way of seeing Mars and Mercury, they were disappearing behind the moon for roughly an hour, I would guess, or so. And that was prior to the moon covering the solar disk. The moon was covering Mercury, and afterwards Mars. So you see, there's a really a powerful link which has been created there between Mercury, Sun and Mars, and all linked with lunar energy. Actually, we had to receive those frequencies from Mars, the Sun and Mercury through the moon for some time, which is super powerful to consider. That means when energy filters directly through the moon, then it really gets soaked in lunar energy, which is what really links us with the cosmos, is the moon. The moon is Earth's satellite, and the moon rules the water, the moon rules the tides in the ocean, the moon rules the tides in our own bodies. The moon is about emotion, about moods, about sudden and constant change, about change. I guess that's probably the best keyword for the moon is change. It's constant change, like the clouds moving. You can't go have your eyes go away for 5 minutes and everything looks differently. So Mercury and Mars, and then you see again they're just coming here to a conjunction probably a day or so after that big flare. And then let me just lead you back into this one now, which we talked about. You can go back to that video. Just want to point out this was the exact new moon, Mars and Mercury here from Earth's point of view, exactly flanking the source point. Another indication that Mars and Mercury are super important. Mars and Mercury, what do they mean? Well, Mercury is the intellect, is thinking, speaking, communicating, all of that, and Mars is action, doing, getting it real, getting it done. And so together, yes, they become, it really, Mercury becomes vocal, Mercury becomes expressive, putting its male energy into it. In that sense, Mercury could say is kind of a hermaphrodite, is neither. It is really the it in a way, as our minds are. They're kind of having that quality. That's why people in today's time and age identify too much with their mind and not enough with their body. That's why they get so confused. Anyway, so Mars and Mercury are the two which are ruling this chart, with Pluto here in the middle and the source point in hexagram 41, which is defeat, interestingly enough. Defeat is a beautiful energy, very spiritual. It is the idea that we have to bow down, that sometimes it's necessary to go through a very humble phase. And I guess that's what we are all experiencing. This is the time of humility, of love, of compassion, of standing together, holding each other's hands. And on the other side is hexagram 31, which is one of the most powerful hexagrams as such, which is the beginning of the second half of the I Ching, as they say, which is what's the word really here they use? I sometimes forget, it slips my mind. Let me just go and see, and I show you where I find that. It's pretty easy and straightforward. So that is 31, I said. Influence. Influence is the sign of marriage, of the two yin and yang having come into a mutually empowering configuration. The upper trigram Tui, the joyous, the lower Ken, keeping still. By its persistent, quiet influence, the lower, rigid trigram stimulates the upper, weak trigram, which responds to this stimulation cheerfully and joyously. And it's the youngest son and the youngest daughter Thus, the universal mutual attraction between the sexes is represented. It is in courtship, the masculine principle must seize the initiative and place itself below the feminine principle. Very beautiful, very true. Just as the first part of book 1, part 1 of the I Ching begins with hexagrams of heaven and earth, the foundation of all that exists. The second part begins with the hexagrams of courtship and marriage, the foundations of all social relationships. Yes, a very powerful hexagram that is an early Leo taking the lead and being proud of playing that role, of going first, of showing the way. That's kind of the energy of this hexagram. And naturally, just to say it once more, this is the hexagram revolution, where the sun and moon have met in these last few days. Yes, revolution. You heard right. And that solar flare also, all that extreme radiation came in that 5 or 6 day period. Yes, we definitely went through a huge upgrade. At the same time, Uranus squaring Sun and Moon. It was obvious that something big would be manifesting. Again, go back to that recording. It's really worth it. I will keep going here. And this is the next chart here. You see, I just want to point this one out. 2406, the beginning of the year. And then in perfect square, 2357, off by 9 minutes of arc. This is when Mars and Pluto had their exact meeting, and Arrokoth, I love Arrokoth here, and the horizon, exactly conjunct the ascendant. And the ascendant in that sense is where how we express ourselves, and yeah, it couldn't be much better than that. Arrokoth is the one which sees the whole picture. One of these outermost bodies in the solar system, 4 billion miles away. It took the spacecraft New Horizon, let me say it right, 2006 it was launched, 2019, 13 years it was traveling before it was having a close up inspection of that one little body. Has had such an impact what we learned from this little orbiter, that the whole history of the solar system had to be rewritten. And was named after an American native word of Arrokoth, the one standing under the open sky, seeing the whole firmament, getting the whole picture of the panorama, what all is entailed in it. And in that sense, it is when all pieces of the puzzle fall in place. So this is very, very auspicious. This really shows that there's a big coming home which is happening right now. Yes, it's painful. It's many people are deeply ashamed too how wrong they were treating others and all of that. I mean, it's a difficult time to go through on many levels for that. That's again why compassion and love is so important. It is really the driving engine for the best timeline possible, and we are on that best timeline possible right now, and it's getting ever better. Yes, there's lots of suffering too. Interesting, when Mars and Pluto had their exact conjunction. You see the moon and Eris are dead on together. I mean, you can't make these things up. It was on the 14th, just 5 days after the new moon. And if we go back to this chart once more, see that is the descendant 2406. So everything is kind of building on top of each other. As I earlier said, it's big structures of energies which are put in place, one brick at a time, to then all act in synchronicity with each other. Naturally, the Mars and Pluto conjunction, this is prime power. This is Pluto empowering Mars, which is a personal planet, to start manifesting through its hands and feet, through its mouth, and all the tools we have at hand with that Mars energy. Mars is really the sacred male energy at best. Yes, in the lower frequency it's war and conflict. But if we go for the best, and that's what we always should aim for, each planet has so many levels of expressing itself. We can choose which level we want to see. This is really where free will comes in. We have the choice of which level we want to get into this energy at, where we want to meet it. And in a simple way said, it's our attitude. I keep saying this is where freedom of choice really is, in our attitude. If we have the attitude that every moment is the best ever, and it can only get better, even if you're going through a difficult phase, if you can honor that thought at all, that maybe this is something which is good in the end, something which is worth going through. And that is kind of the insight too, which is coming with this Oraclegirl here. Actually, Hilanome is beautiful place naturally too, one of the feminine centaurs, actually the one who chooses to die to be with her beloved husband. So it is sacrificing even one's life for something or someone one is so deeply in love with. Yes, it is literally the ultimate sacrifice which is there with Hilanome, and this is also going on in these present days. And you see then there's the Venus conjunction of Hilanome. I mean, it's a beautiful energy overall, which will win, which will get the upper hand. And as soon as things really start falling in the walls of Jericho, which is one of the stories which keeps coming to my mind, that's exactly what's actually happening right now on this planet. It's this beautiful biblical story. They were playing the trumpets, walking around the perimeter of the city wall for 10 times, blowing the trumpets, and the mere sound, that's what it says in the story, brought the walls to crumble down. That's exactly what is happening, what we will see, and that's what we have to put our focus on. Look forward, don't look into the back at all. Don't even read the news anymore. It's not worth it. It's all already on its path to where it should go, will go. Everybody plays their role perfectly right now. So our role is to stay positive, to generate love energy, to generate that frequency, to connect with the loving presence, which is everywhere, which is the quality of the quantum vacuum. Sacred geometry, it's all the same. Divine energy everywhere, divine energy fills the space, and we are breathing and constantly in communion with that energy, if we consciously attract it and give it anchoring, manifest it, embody it, bringing it into this manifest world. That is what matters. Mercury conjunct Chariklo. I mean, it can't get much better. Chariklo is the wife of Chiron, all about compassion, the midwife. Yes. So, yes, the energy is fierce, but it is very conscious and very compassionate at the same time. Nature is very exact too. That is another thing to keep in mind. Even in chaotic circumstances, nature is perfectly on track, on the point. And with chaos here at 0 degrees in Gemini, in Cancer, this is another one we will look at a bit more closely very, very soon. Chaos, the primordial order in the 1st degree of the cardinal south, the cardinal cross, 0 degrees Cancer. This is a powerful point in itself. So yes, everything is moving in the right direction. And then tomorrow, Friday, okay, now we are starting to catch up with reality, I guess. All that was history so far. So now let's look forward a little bit towards the end of the month. And that's actually what I have here in these next few charts. Let me quickly give you a preview at this point before I go into the details, then you see what's still coming. So this is Jupiter TX300, then the Lunar North Node and Chiron on the 19th, Venus-Mars conjunction on the 22nd, Sun Gonggong conjunction on the 24th, look at that, and on that very same day, a few hours later, there is the Virgo full moon perfectly opposing Gonggong. Here you see the close conjunction, and then we have Mercury and the Sun meeting at the end of the month perfectly in the same degree with Saturn. And then this is the Sun-Saturn conjunction a few hours later. And here I have the Gonggong chart. Okay, this is what we are going through quickly. I won't spend too much time, but there are a few highlights I really want to point out. So Jupiter in TX300, yes, this is been an ongoing conjunction for quite a while. Here in Taurus are the two. TX300 is the bold energy of the big truckers. That's what I first really got to understand, that energy. Bold, loud, big, with a great kind of physical impression. Together with Jupiter, this is a big energy, and we have Chiron and the North Node here almost conjunct. So this is pretty much happening within days of each other, which magnifies this kind of healing crisis in many ways. Actually, there's a perfect T-square here with the power axis. That 16th degree here of the signs Libra and Aries. Yes, I will get back to that, believe me. This is a powerful degree, exactly the same axis we will have on April the 8th on the upcoming solar eclipse. Exactly same horizon. And then, see, this was on the 16th, 3 days later, we have the perfect conjunction. Again, pretty much under the same geometry. 16, 16. You see, it's uncanny that yes, here it's 20, so it's a little bit further here between the node Chiron and Eris, but still within that few degrees. Note the configuration here of Pluto, Venus and Mars. Now the sequence has changed. Now Mars is in the lead. When we look back to the moment when we had the flare, you see it was the other way around. Venus was behind, approaching Mars and Pluto, and now we are at the other end of the story here. I guess this is the one, yeah. So now things are starting to roll out, whereas before, up to this point of conjunction, they were kind of still building up, getting more full, more charged up, and then comes the release process. Now here we are already in the release already here. Well, you see here it was actually interesting when Jupiter and X3.4 meet. Venus and Mars are on either side of Pluto, so here this is probably the strongest meeting they have. Which means it's the inception point, and interesting that it links in here with all these other 16-degree cardinal. I will definitely make a short video on that. It's worth it, just show you the different charts where that exact axis is accentuated. So okay, here's another good one. The 10th degree of Cancer. That's where the moon is when the node and Chiron are exactly conjunct. And remember what we started this show up here with the 9th at the 10th degree of Cancer, the diamond being cut. That's exactly that same energy again coming in. Yes, it is not an easy process. We have to kind of suffer through it to some degree to feel the heat, to feel that that grinding noise. It's hard on the stone, yes, to get polished, but it brings out its inner life, its brilliance, its full potential. So that is truly what is happening with us here on planet Earth right now. So yes, again, just be in receptive mode. Yes, it is important to take it slow. Actually, this is a time to really to hunker down in unprecedented ways, which we probably pretty soon have to, as things ramp up with natural events. Just again quoting what Jacqueline Hobbs said. Yes, she said, yes, it's coming. Earthquakes, hurricanes, rivers running dry, big areas of Earth being flooded. Yes, it's becoming serious. Many people are bound to leave. These people all have signed up for that. They take on that role. This is all an upgrade on all levels, even if it's going through a difficult phase. I'm expecting the real tough time to be anywhere between March the 11th and early May. And you see, some of you might have wondered what this chart here is on the side. That's actually one of those really most intense and most difficult moments when Mars is in an exact opposition to the black moon, where the moon is farthest away from Earth. And you can see here, I mean, it's exactly on the ascendant descendant axis. This is manifesting. So around April 20, this is kind of the center line. It will get intense. Okay, Venus Mars, new creation. And again the same degree here. 725 Pisces. You see here we had 550. Here we had 616. See, it's coming together in quite an amazing way. So anyway, let's look at this chart a little more in detail. The moon in Leo by now, that is the 22nd of February, opposing Venus and Mars when they meet exactly. So this is again bringing it down into the real experiential place where we get to feel what's going on. And Venus Mars in Aquarius, I mean this is beautiful. It is all new, exciting. If we just can focus on that part. Yes, there's another side to Aquarius which is very detached and able to literally pull oneself out of the physical dimension, go into this, whatever you call it, avatar state, where you are just outside of yourself, watching everything, and you can go through the most bizarre and extreme experiences, and you're kind of disconnected from truly feeling, sensing it. Yes, this time it will be different with the moon in opposition. The moon with Varuna. Varuna is the one which demands justice and the correct, by the law, by the book, it has to be done correctly. The highest standards are applied here. And then the horizon here, again with Gonggong naturally here between Sun and Saturn. Saturn and Gonggong flanking the ascendant, how things are expressing. It's pretty clear. I mean, there's many more things. Juno here with the dark moon, meaning it's meeting with one another in sorrow, in deep emotional turmoil. The black moon always wants us to honor the shadow, honor the dark side, honor what we usually do not want to see. Orcus here, Orcus is all about alchemy, transformation, transmutation. Orcus is in the same family as Pluto. It's one of the Plutinos, means it all shares the orbital period with Pluto. An energy of the underworld. Yes, it is about transformation, transmutation of the shadow, and in that sense also the overcoming of all those dark emotions which we are carrying right now, of, as I said, shock, grief, anger, shame, you name it. It's the whole cocktail of that is available with Saturn in the collective field of Pisces together with Neptune. Yes, there's lots and lots of karmic unveiling, karmic tying loose ends with each other, and actually Hygeia is in here too, which is all about health, well-being. Yes, that is definitely in the bullseye here too of that black moon energy right now. It's really amazing how everything comes together in sync with that new creation of a new reality. It's really, it's complex, but with the Pisces rising overall, this is, you could also say we are dreaming a new reality into existence. And Saturn here is grounding it in that deep interconnection with the fabric of our psyches, and making us get an actual experience of that layer, which usually is too I would say too elusive. Pisces can be quite elusive, and you can't really catch the energy. When Saturn is in there, Saturn nails it down, brings it into focus. The same with Neptune. Saturn is actually catching up to Neptune. So this is an increasing process here as we get into the end of their cycle and into the beginning of the new cycle, which is really, if we look at the bigger picture, this will be 25, 26 happening when Saturn and Neptune pretty much simultaneously will move into Aries and meet in early Aries. This is really the birth then of a whole new era, you could say, 25, 26 around. So till then we are in the end phase, you could say. Yes, it's already clearly visible where we're going, and that's where we should focus. Okay, yes, I showed you this one before. This is really the one chart which tells you all. That is when Sun and Gonggong have their perfect yearly recharging moment, when that energy directly comes into the solar logos principle, gets harnessed, and for their transferred into this dimension of expression, Uranus at the ascendant. What can you say? It will be literally bringing down that Uranian principle deep into Earth, shaking it, renewing it together with Jupiter. This is a big rebirth, in many ways rebirth of this, you could say, of the new surface of Earth even. Could be a whole remodeling. And even though it's already a bit long here, I just want to throw in one more thought here. Okay, that is definitely an unexpected one, I guess, for most of you, that I would bring in the Philadelphia experiment at this point. Well, to just say it in 2 sentences, when these 2 engineers, 2 brothers who ran the ship, who ran the experiment on the bridge of that ship, which was pushed into hyperspace, when they realized that everything went hayward, they only knew one thing to save their lives. They were in panic. They ran out into to the railing and jumped overboard of the ship to get out of that electromagnetic bubble, and they ended up in the future, in the year 2137, where they were treated in a hospital for radiation burns for having traveled through hyperspace unprotected. So they literally time traveled together they stayed for some miraculous reasons and were received there and treated. And that experiment, as you know, took place in 1943, where they found themselves. There were color TV screens as huge as the whole wall, and bringing entertainment. Naturally, if you're in a hospital or recovering, there's lots of time to do that. And once in a while they were showing news and maps of Earth, and they looked radically different from what they had learned in school, those two brothers. And they asked, and they were told, well, yes, that was around the year 2025, around that time, the first quarter of the 21st century, when things radically changed on this planet, when and there were big seismic geological shifts happening. And they also learned, as they then further asked questions, that at this point, 2137, only about 300 million people were living on this planet Earth, and they were living in a peaceful and very beautiful society of love, of really as good as it can get. That is where we are getting, and it is well possible that this future timeline is the one we are steering toward, as these two brothers brought that memory back. And I mean, this is unique anyway, that two people have exactly the same shared memory. Then it is definitely hard to question. This is Albiolek's website, which gives you the whole story. Lots of the really valid information here. It's all well founded. All that is not speculation or conspiracy or any of that. This is real stuff. So just saying, that's probably what is going on in the next months or so, that we are going through this phase of reconfiguration of everything. Virgo full moon with Saturn here at the top on the 24th, then a few hours later. That's the one which I pointed out already earlier, where the sun is within, you see, 8 minutes of arc of Gonggong. And naturally, full moons are usually giving a preview for the next 4 weeks or so. So you can calculate that yourself. And then the superior conjunction of Mercury and the Sun. That is when, from Earth's perspective, Mercury is exactly behind the Sun, which is kind of the culmination of the 4-month cycle Sun, Earth and Mercury have between one retrograde and the other. This is exactly the other end. This is the top of the tree, the crown, where really the Mercury energy is starting to come to completion in the sense of manifesting itself. And together with Mercury, yes, this is again concrete thoughts. It will get nailed down to the detail what has happened and what we are here facing. Jupiter and TX300 rising. I mean, it can't get much better. This is an amplification of that energy. So it is everything is kind of on steroids in the next few weeks and months. That's why, yes, it is a good time to, if you can, to slow down, to be more in your inner space and meditate and create that frequency of love. I can't repeat myself too often. This is super, super important. Last but not least, I just want to show you here again how the universe plays when Sun and Mercury have their exact alignment to the second. This is where the moon is 2049 Libra, and a few hours later when the Sun is exactly conjunct Saturn, this is where the descendant is 2014, the ascendant is 2049 Libra. You see, you can't make that stuff up. It's just uncanny. It just shows you again, yes, there is definitely a great synchronicity up in the cosmos if we just would allow that to be fully received and mirrored down here. And we are getting closer because we are getting rid of a parasite. That is the heart of the whole story. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you for joining and listening, having the patience to be here till the very end. I am definitely honored that. I know it's a long story usually here with me. And thank you for supporting me. Thank you for subscribing, liking it, or even sharing. Have a wonderful time. I love you all. We will get through this and it will be amazing. Yes, it will be amazing. The best is yet to come. Yes. Bye bye.